Hello YouTubers out there, this is Jerry Saravia at the movies. So today we're talking about the original Terrifier from the year 2016, and this film was directed by Damien Leone. And this film has become, or rather its sequel, which just came out recently, was crowdfunded for $250,000 budget and already made over $5.6 million at the box office, which is really impressive for a film that costs so little, is being talked about a lot because the sequel, apparently, which I have not seen, has people vomiting and fainting at certain screenings because it's excessively violent and bloody, apparently. Now, I don't know, in terms of excess gore, I don't know how far one can go anymore. But Terrifier, which I just saw yesterday, is an example of going really far. And although I'm not a fan of gore, as many of you know who've watched my channel, even though I appreciate Nightmare on Elm Street and its sequels because of the imagination that went into the kills, if you like, we still cared about the characters to some degree. Now, Terrifier is blood-splattered, empty-headed, very brutally vicious grade C junk, which means that it's not a terrible film, it's not boring, it sort of maintains interest only because the curiosity factor in this film is how far the violence will go. And it goes pretty far. So let's backtrack. The film begins already with kind of a relentless beat. It kind of pounds you on the head, so to speak, when a news reporter is attacked and has her face and eye ripped out by someone who had just suffered the same. So apparently the survivor of what Art the Clown had done, this small little massacre inside of an abandoned building that is rat infested, she attacks the news reporter who had just interviewed her and does this to her face. What a way to start a movie. So Art the Clown is this character who has a black and white, he's basically a clown, he's dressed as a clown, he has a black and white costume, black and white makeup on his face, and certainly, if nothing else about this movie, the character itself, played by David Howard Thornton, is devilish looking and certainly has menace oozing from his face. I mean, this is not a clown you want to run into at all. And yet we have the film is set on Halloween night, and we have two girls who are drunk, Tara and Dawn, played by Jenna Cannell and Samantha Scafidi, neither of whom I've seen in any movie before. And you kind of know, and there are spoilers in this review in case you haven't seen this movie. Again, it's from 2016, but you just know, watching these two girls, that they're probably not going to survive this night. One of them, if not both, are not going to survive. So, or they're approaching their car, let me put it that way. And they are too drunk, so they decide to go to a pizza place. And because pizza, for some reason, will help cure drunkenness. I never heard this before. I always thought a black cup of coffee or something else would do it, but whatever. It's a movie. So anyway, they go to this pizza place, and Art the Clown appears. And the pizza place is mostly unoccupied. It looks like a New York pizzeria. It wasn't clear if this film is set in New York. I think it might be. It certainly looks it. At any rate, there's the pizza owner and then his one employee. And it's important to mention this because Art the Clown enters this pizza place, has his eye on Tara. For whatever reason, he looks at her. I mean, he is a mime. He doesn't say anything. He never speaks. I'm sure he has the ability to, but he never says a word. Everything is expressed through body language, gestures, whatever. So the other girl, Dawn, has a selfie taken with him because, of course, she's drunk and doesn't know any better. And the two girls leave, and Tara is kind of freaked out by this clown, who, by the way, gives her an engagement ring that he takes out of this little candy machine. So they leave, and then Art the Clown goes to the bathroom and leaves fecal matter everywhere. And then comes back and decapitates both the pizza owner and the employee, unbeknownst to the two girls who are walking back to their car. So then they have a flat tire, and then Tara calls her sister. So you know that the sister is going to arrive and perhaps face, this is going to be a slaughterhouse night. Nonetheless, Tara feels the need to pee. She goes inside this abandoned building. The pest control employee lets her in, even though he feels he's not supposed to, but he does. So the bathroom looks just as awful as you can imagine, and inside this building. And then she runs into a homeless woman who is nurturing a plastic baby doll whom she feels is a real baby doll, or a real baby, I should say. And this is how the movie starts. But there's no real depth to these characters, except for the homeless woman to a certain extent. You kind of wish the movie spent more time with her, which I think would have been interesting, instead of these two dim-witted girls. I'm sorry to say. I hate to say that about women, but these two they're dunderheaded to such a degree that they make all the same mistakes that women tend to make in slasher pictures. And if this is a hark back to the 80s slasher movies, where women and men too also make the same mistakes, then, like running back into an abandoned building after almost surviving a knife attack from Art the Clown, then, this movie just doesn't make any sense. Art the Clown, now the interesting thing about Art the Clown is that he has one scene in this movie which lasts about a good 30 seconds, and I'm being funny about it, I'm being sarcastic. It probably lasts at least a good 2.5 minutes, but he finds the plastic baby doll, because the homeless woman, I think she drops it at one point and is looking for it. I forget exactly how this managed to happen in this place. And he finds it, and then she confronts him, and he's sort of nurturing the baby doll. And then she realizes that Art the Clown, maybe, he just someone needs to pay attention to him, to be nice to him, to see that maybe there's not just evil, there might be some good in him, which of course we, the audience, know this is probably not the case. However, she then sees how he's paying attention to this doll, and then she hugs him. And then we, the audience, are saying, please don't do that. Then she suffers an attack from him, which is fairly brutal. I mean, he basically removes her breasts and wears them. It's kind of like an Ed Gein moment. For those of you who don't remember Ed Gein, look him up. Wisconsin farmer who, back in the 1950s, skinned people alive and has been the basis for a lot of slasher horror ever since. Whether that's good or not, I don't know. But nonetheless, then also scalps her. Now, the girl Tara almost survives an attack from him. He stabs her, and then she finds a way to get back at him. She stabs him with a nail or something, and then a knife, and then it looks like the guy should be down, but then he comes back, and then he apparently has a gun and shoots her, and then he shoots her repeatedly in the face. And I thought, this is just sadism just for the sake of it. Most of it is sadistic and extremely gruesome violence. There's a point where he saws a woman in half. It's a little much. Now, of course I know, this is about upping the ante. Apparently the sequel really ups the ante. I haven't seen the sequel. I guess I probably should. It has apparently more story than this movie. Okay. The pros to this movie are, the character is menacing. Art the Clown is menacing. The girls are expendable. I mean, you just don't care about them. I wish I could say that I wanted to. I mean, you want them to survive. And of course, anytime you see a movie with victims of some sort of evil that is terrorizing them, you want them to survive. And they're not, horror films of late have apparently, on occasion, slasher horror especially, have shown characters to be unlikable, so that it's almost like, you want them to die, which is not really the right way to look at things either. I don't believe so, because even if characters are unlikable, unless they're doing immoral things to other people, then I can understand that you want them to have their just desserts, but even I don't understand that criticism. But you hear a lot of people who will say things like that, movie reviewers especially. So these characters are not unlikable, but they're expendable. It's just, they're about as half as memorable as any characters from Friday the 13th movies, and I'd be hard-pressed to remember any single character from any of those movies that I have seen. So, but this character, Art the Clown, I mean, I could see how he's going to become, if he isn't already, a slasher icon, along the same lines as Michael Myers and Pinhead, I guess, to a certain extent. But certainly Jason Voorhees, possibly Freddy Krueger. There's a supernatural bent to this character, and it seems, judging from the ending, and again, if you haven't seen the movie, don't listen to this part, but the character essentially comes back from the dead, which, I mean, what else is new? We've seen that before. But it suggests a supernatural demon of some kind is this character, because he offs himself in front of police who finally arrive. And but then it made me wonder, well, if he is a demonic character, why does he have to kill people in ways that any serial killer would do it? I mean, of course, Michael Myers was that way too, and Jason Voorhees, I guess it just falls in line with that, but it seemed there was more to this character than even those characters. Those characters, Michael Myers and Jason Voorhees, after a while, they're not very interesting, because there's nothing to them, they're faceless. This character, there is more to him, but the movie only suggests it, but it doesn't really explore it. I'm not saying provide a backstory and all that stuff, and certainly I'm sure they're going to do that with subsequent sequels. But I wish there was more imagination at work here. The character is frightening to look at. He does have presence. He is menacing, for sure. You could see that menace in him. And I thought, with all that, you don't really even need the gore. I mean, I know gorehounds love gore, but it doesn't even seem necessary. Like, you've done all the work already. You may as well build on imagination and atmosphere. Terrifier, again, another benefit to the film. It's well made. It's well choreographed. For an independent film, especially, they got some pros to really make this film look good, and it does look good. Night shots are incredible. It's really well made, but it's not a scary movie. This is a nihilistic, bloody entrails, or severed organs type of movie. It's just, that's all it is. But the character is so interesting just to look at that I can't really give the film a complete dismissal. I don't recommend it, but I will say I wasn't bored by it. But I'm not really looking to see this movie again either. But I am curious about the sequel. So, those are my thoughts. This movie is essentially, it cranks up the sadism to 11 million units of pumped up blood. I think is the best way to say it. And that the subtitle of this movie should have been Avert Your Eyes. There are moments that you don't even want to look. Mainly because the character is that menacing, is that violent. But it's violence upon violence upon violence, and so after a while, that's the subject of the movie. As is the case with many slasher films, but it looked to me, no pun intended, that this was probably meant to be a cut above the rest. And it looks like there's more potential. Now, if there's more sadistic gore in the next one, well, that's the way it is. But, I like my sadistic gore to have a pulse, to be something more than just nihilistic. Hellraiser is an excellent example, the original film anyway. That certainly was a gore fest, but it sort of trickled. It didn't really slam you in the face with it. So those are my thoughts. Let me know your thoughts about Terrifier, if you've ever seen it, what you think about Art the Clown, if you've seen the sequel, and what do you think of all this? And let me your thoughts, and if you like what you hear, please subscribe to my channel. And this is Jerry Saravia at the Movies, signing off.